Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. Let's talk about something that just refuses to die in the NFL rumor mill. The idea that the Miami Dolphins might trade Jalen Waddle. Yeah, you heard that right. Somehow, even as we sit less than 2 weeks away from the 2025 NFL trade deadline, people are still tossing Waddle's name around like he's just another piece on the board, like he's some kind of expendable luxury for a team that's collapsing. But here's the thing, it doesn't make any sense. None. Not for the Dolphins, not for their future, and not even for the logic of team building in the modern NFL. And yet, here we are again, watching Jalen Waddle headline trade speculation lists across national media, this time courtesy of ESPN, who ranked him as the number 2 trade candidate in the entire league, right behind Trey Hendrickson of the Bengals. The irony? Even their own write-up admitted that Miami isn't planning to trade him. So what are we even doing here? Why is this conversation still happening? Maybe it's because fans love drama. Maybe it's because the Dolphins, sitting at a miserable 1-6 record, are a mess, and chaos naturally draws speculation. Every time a team struggles, people start imagining fire sales, rebuilds, and desperation moves. But let's keep it real. Trading Jalen Waddle would be the equivalent of ripping out one of the few healthy organs in a body that's already struggling to survive. Waddle isn't just a good player. He's part of the DNA of this offense. He's part of what makes Miami even remotely dangerous when things are clicking. You take him out of that system, and you're not just losing production, you're losing identity. Now, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler said it pretty clearly. The team does not plan to trade the player, but interest is there. That's the key phrase. Interest is there. Of course it is. Every GM in the league would love to get their hands on a 27-year-old wideout who's electric after the catch, one of the smoothest route runners in football, and still hasn't hit his ceiling. Teams dream about players like Waddle. They don't trade them unless their backs are completely against the wall. And for Miami, as bad as things look right now, this isn't the kind of move you make just because the season's gone off the rails. If you're going to rebuild, you need cornerstone pieces. You need players to build around, not just draft picks to build with. Waddle is that kind of piece. Let's put this in perspective. Waddle turns 27 next month. That's still young. He's entering the prime of his career, not exiting it. His contract? Team-friendly as it gets. For 2025, his cap hit is just $8 million, practically pocket change for a receiver of his caliber in today's market. It bumps up slightly to $11.7 million in 2026. And only then does it jump into the 30s in 2027, when the guarantees drop off. Translation, Miami holds all the leverage here. They've got an elite offensive weapon locked up on a reasonable deal with flexibility down the road. That's not a guy you ship out. That's a guy you protect. And it's not like the Dolphins are drowning in receivers who can replace him. TYREEK Hill is still an absolute monster, but he's also 31 and showing signs of wear. If the Dolphins are truly heading into a rebuild, they need a bridge, someone who can carry the passing game through whatever comes next. You can't reboot an offense from scratch. You need continuity, and Waddle provides exactly that. He's the kind of player who keeps defensive coordinators honest, the kind of receiver who opens up space for everyone else just by existing on the field. He's the guy defenses plan for even when the ball isn't going his way. Now, I get it. Some people will argue that no one is untouchable. They'll bring up the Laramie Tunsil trade from 2019, when Houston threw a king's ransom at Miami and forced their hand. And that's fair. Every player has a price. If some desperate contender wants to cough up multiple first-rounders and a proven starter, you at least pick up the phone. But let's be honest, that's not happening. No one's giving up that kind of capital for a receiver when the market is already saturated with young talent. So what are we even talking about here? This is fantasy football-level speculation disguised as real analysis. If anything, Miami should be adding pieces around Waddle, not subtracting them. But here's where things get weird. In that same ESPN piece, Jacoby Myers showed up as a trade candidate, and the Dolphins were actually listed as one of the teams that could go after him. Wait, what? So let me get this straight. On one hand, people think Miami might trade away Waddle, and on the other, they think Miami might add a veteran wide receiver who's already asked to be moved and will be a free agent next year. That's the definition of contradictory logic. Why would a team that's clearly headed toward a rebuild be spending draft picks on a short-term rental? It's nonsense. The Dolphins don't need another wideout. They need a direction. And that's where we have to talk about the bigger picture here, the Dolphins front office and what comes next. Mike McDaniel has already come out swinging, calling these rumors baseless. He knows what's up. He knows this kind of chatter destabilizes the locker room, especially when it involves one of your foundational players. But the noise is going to keep coming because, well, the NFL is a 24/7 rumor machine. Every week someone new gets tossed into the hypothetical trade blender. It's part of the ecosystem. Still, the fact that Waddle keeps showing up near the top of those lists says more about perception than reality. People see the Dolphins sinking and assume a teardown. But a smart teardown doesn't mean shipping off your few remaining stars. It means trimming fat, not cutting muscle. Speaking of fat to trim, let's pivot to Jaelan Phillips for a second, because he's another name that's been floated around, and unlike Waddle, that one actually makes some sense. Phillips is on his fifth-year option. He's set to be a free agent next offseason, and while he's been productive when healthy, that when healthy qualifier is doing a lot of work. The guy has talent, no question, but he's battled injuries, and the Dolphins might not be eager to hand out a long-term deal. If they can get decent value for him before the deadline, that's a move that fits a rebuild narrative. Same goes for veterans like Bradley Chubb and Matthew Judon. Those are the kinds of players you can move to create cap space and stockpile picks. But Waddle? That's a different conversation entirely. Let's not forget what Waddle represents to Miami fans, too. This is a guy they drafted, developed, and watched grow into one of the league's most dynamic playmakers. He's not just a stat line, he's a spark. Even in a season that's gone sideways, Waddle brings life to every game. Trading him would send a brutal message to the fan base that the Dolphins are starting over completely. And that's not a message you want to send when you're already struggling to keep people in the seats. Fans can stomach losing if they see a plan, but trading away homegrown talent like Waddle would scream chaos, not strategy. Now, let's play devil's advocate for a second. Suppose some front office executive out there, maybe in Dallas, maybe in Kansas City, picks up the phone and calls Miami. They dangle a first-rounder and maybe a mid-round pick. Do the Dolphins at least listen? Sure, they listen. Every good GM listens. But that's as far as it goes unless the offer blows them away. Because again, Waddle's not just a short-term contributor. He's a contract-controlled, ascending player at a premium position. Those are gold in today's NFL. You don't trade gold for lottery tickets. The funny thing is, these rumors keep coming up not because they're credible, but because they're clickable. Waddle's name drives engagement. People want to talk about him. He's fast, flashy, and easy to visualize in another uniform. Imagine Waddle catching passes from Mahomes or Burrow. That's the kind of dream scenario that gets people excited online. But there's a difference between excitement and reality. And in reality, Waddle isn't going anywhere. If anything, the Dolphins' focus right now should be on rebuilding their trenches, fixing the defense, and finding stability at quarterback. Those are the moves that actually change the trajectory of a franchise. Waddle, on the other hand, is part of the solution. He's not the problem. Keeping him gives Miami flexibility, continuity, and something to sell fans on. A legitimate offensive weapon to build around for the next era. So to answer the question, why is Waddle's name still out there in trade speculation? Because rumors are easy, logic is hard, and desperate teams make for good headlines. But when the deadline comes and goes, don't expect Jalen Waddle to be anywhere but South Beach, wearing aqua and orange, doing the penguin waddle in the end zone. Because sometimes the most obvious truth is the one people don't want to hear. The Dolphins might be broken, but they're not stupid. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? Alright, buckle up, folks, because the NFL world has just been hit with one of those bombshells that nobody saw coming. The kind of story that doesn't just dominate headlines, but takes over every sports bar conversation, every podcast episode, every group chat of diehard football fans across the country. TYREEK Hill, the cheetah himself, one of the fastest and most electrifying players the league has ever seen, has just dropped a statement that's sending shockwaves through Miami, through the Dolphins organization, and across the entire NFL. Yes, you heard that right. TYREEK Hill has hinted, and from the sound of it, confirmed, that his time with the Miami Dolphins might be coming to an end. And the way he said it, the emotion behind it, the weight of those words, it's left everyone from fans to analysts wondering what's really going on behind the scenes. Now, before we get into what this could mean for the Dolphins, for Tyreek's career, and even for the NFL landscape as a whole, let's rewind a bit. TYREEK Hill has been nothing short of spectacular since joining the Dolphins. When Miami traded for him, it wasn't just a big move, it was a franchise-defining decision. Pairing his world-class speed with Tua Tagovailoa's precision passing, Mike McDaniel's creative offensive system, and that explosive energy, it was like watching a track meet disguised as a football game. The chemistry between Tua and Tyreek became one of the most dangerous weapons in the league. Every time Hill lined up, defenses trembled because they knew one mistake, one split-second hesitation, and he was gone. A 70-yard touchdown later, and the crowd was erupting in Miami Gardens like it was a playoff game. That's what Tyreek brought: electricity, swagger, joy, and that rare ability to make everyone on the field look like they were moving in slow motion. So when he steps in front of the cameras, voice low, eyes heavy, and says something along the lines of, "It's been a great ride, but sometimes you've got to listen to your heart," you can almost hear the collective gasp ripple across the football world. Fans immediately started flooding social media. What does he mean? Is this about retirement? Is he getting traded? Is he unhappy with the Dolphins? Theories are flying everywhere, and nobody seems to know exactly what's happening. But one thing's for sure: TYREEK Hill doesn't speak in riddles unless there's something serious going on. This isn't some random off-season drama. This feels different. This feels personal. The Dolphins front office, at least publicly, is staying quiet. No statements, no denials, no confirmation of anything. But the silence is almost louder than words. People inside the organization are reportedly stunned, and even some teammates have reacted cryptically online. A few likes here, a few vague posts there, which only adds fuel to the fire. Some sources are saying that Tyreek has been feeling burned out. The grind of the NFL, the pressure, the expectations, they've started to take a toll. And if you followed Tyreek closely, you know he's hinted before that football isn't forever for him. He's mentioned wanting to retire early, maybe around age 30, to focus on family, business ventures, even content creation. The man has always had bigger dreams beyond the gridiron. But the idea that it could be happening now, that the Dolphins could lose their biggest star this soon, is still almost impossible for fans to process. Let's not forget, Tyreek is in the middle of one of the most lucrative wide receiver contracts in NFL history. The Dolphins went all in for him, not just financially but philosophically. Their entire offense is built around his speed. Without him, that dynamic, that threat, that constant fear factor, it changes everything. Defenses won't need to double him deep, safeties won't play as far back, and suddenly the Dolphins' entire rhythm shifts. Tua's confidence, the spacing for Jalen Waddle, the play calling from McDaniel, it's all been engineered with Tyreek at the center. Losing him isn't just losing a player. It's losing the heartbeat of an offensive identity that's redefined modern football. And yet, if Tyreek's heart truly isn't in it anymore, if he's mentally done, maybe this is the right time. But here's where it gets even messier. There are whispers, and I mean whispers, that this isn't just about retirement or burnout. Some say there's been tension building quietly between Tyreek and parts of the Dolphins organization. Maybe it's about his role, maybe about internal expectations, maybe even about disagreements on how he's being used or managed physically. Tyreek's competitive fire burns hot, and he's not the type to sit quietly when things don't feel right. The Dolphins have had their share of ups and downs this season, with injuries, inconsistent performances, and constant pressure from fans and media to live up to this Super Bowl or bust narrative. It's entirely possible that the weight of it all, the scrutiny, the noise, finally pushed him to his limit. And then there's the emotional side. Watching Tyreek speak, you can tell this isn't about money or fame. His tone is too genuine, too raw. This sounds like a man who's genuinely torn, someone who loves the game, loves his teammates, but maybe doesn't love where it's taking him right now. He's built an incredible career, earned respect across the league, silenced critics, and proven that he's more than just speed. He's a route technician, a leader, and one of the hardest workers in football. But every athlete reaches a crossroads, and maybe, just maybe, TYREEK Hill is standing at his. The ripple effects of this are enormous. If Tyreek truly leaves Miami, Whether it's retirement, a trade, or even a sabbatical, the entire AFC picture changes. The Dolphins instantly lose their offensive X factor. Teams like the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens suddenly breathe easier. And speaking of the Chiefs, how poetic would it be if Tyreek somehow found his way back to Kansas City? Fans are already dreaming up wild scenarios. A reunion with Patrick Mahomes. A storybook returned to where it all started. It sounds far-fetched, sure, but this is the NFL. Stranger things have happened. And then there's Tua. You have to feel for the guy. He's built a real connection with Tyreek, both on and off the field. Their chemistry has been the centerpiece of Miami's resurgence. Tua has always said that having Tyreek gave him confidence, helped him silence doubters, and made him believe he could lead this team to greatness. Losing that bond would be devastating. And for Mike McDaniel, it would mean going back to the drawing board, rethinking everything that's made this offense so lethal. But let's not jump too far ahead. As of right now, Tyreek hasn't officially filed anything, hasn't been released or traded. This could still be a moment of reflection, a man speaking from the heart after a tough stretch. Maybe it's frustration boiling over. Maybe he just needs a break. Or maybe this is the first chapter of a much bigger story, one that will reshape not just his legacy, but the entire Dolphins franchise. Fans in Miami are heartbroken. You can feel it in every comment, every post, every tearful reaction video. Tyreek brought them hope, swagger, and a sense of belonging to the elite tier of NFL teams again. His celebrations, his energy, his ability to light up Hard Rock Stadium with a single play, that's irreplaceable. And even if this is truly goodbye, there's no doubt he's left an impact that will last for years. Whatever happens next, one thing's certain. This isn't the end of Tyreek Hill's story. Whether he steps away from football, changes teams, or finds a new path altogether, he's already cemented himself as one of the most dynamic and unforgettable players of his generation. But right now, as the NFL world buzzes with speculation, we're all just waiting. Waiting for clarity, waiting for answers, waiting to see what's next for the Cheetah. Because if this really is the end of Tyreek Hill's run in Miami, it's not just the Dolphins that lose. It's the entire NFL that loses a little bit of its magic, a little bit of that pure, adrenaline-fueled excitement that only Tyreek could bring. And maybe that's why this moment feels so heavy. Not because a player might leave a team, but because an era of speed, energy, and fearless football might be coming to a close. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.